Hi, everybody. This is Allyse Sedivy, and today we're going to talk about placements again, but we're going to talk about first the biggest mistakes that we make with placements and why. So, and then after we talk about biggest mistakes, how to solve these mistakes. So, mistake number one is we put product users or sharers on our front lines. So let me tell you why this is such a big mistake and why, and I understand, it's because someone has a class, they haven't prepped well for a class, they just ask their friends and family to come over and they say, hey, in 4 days on Thursday, I'm having a class. And so they don't go through the right steps of sampling, the right steps of following up, and they have no idea kind of who is showing up. That's a whole nother thing that we're going to go over. But you have this first class, right? And because we don't know any better, the first person at the class that says, hey, I'd like to show up, or I'm sorry, I'd like to buy something, you go, great. And so where do you place them? Well, you place them on your front line. And many of those people can be product users. Many of those people are sharers. In fact, if they want to hold a class, we think this is incredible, but we haven't tested them. We don't know exactly, if they're committed or capable. And then what starts to happen after that is we then have a second class. And that second class, if we get more product users or a share, we kind of start building our legs, right? Because we want to build a power of three. And so what usually ends up happening is almost anybody that comes to the table, we just put 3 spots on top because we want to get our $50 power of three. We're so excited, right? But then we start building these legs out so we can hit a lead or eventually silver. And many times we end up with product users or shares on our front line. And you know what happens with that? What happens is that you're doing almost all of the work and that you're then supporting all these other people under your legs and working like a diamond, blue diamond, presidential diamond, and only getting paid like an elite and a silver at times. So the number one mistake that we make is we put product users or sharers on our front line. And then in your mind, you think, well, then where do you put these people, right? Where do you put these people when they sign up? If you have one class and people want to sign up, well, that is exactly the reason why we have as many classes as we can at the very beginning. We're going to go over this in great detail with 6 weeks to elite. So at the very beginning, if we have as many classes as we can within those 14 days where we have to place people, and then we're testing people and we're seeing who they bring to the table, we have a lot more options who we can move and move up to the front line so that we can actually build with someone that's committed and capable. But if you only have one class in that 2-week period of time, you're stuck with whoever comes to that class. So, everything builds upon something else. When the way we sample builds upon how we follow up, the way we follow up builds upon who comes to the class, the way we do the class builds upon how many people enroll, the way we enroll and how we test people and how we figure out if they're committed and capable builds upon who's on our front line. And then everything just snowballs from there. So it's super important that we make the right steps. So mistake number one, this is really clear. I'm sure many of us have made this mistake and it's hard. Mistake number two is putting our family on the front line. Now, I am just like you. I want to help my family just as much as you do. And so I know the temptation is, well, if I'm going to be building this business, why not put my mother on my front line, my sister on my front line, my Aunt Edna? Because if I want to help anyone, it would be these people. Let me tell you, there's a couple of problems with this. The first is that you can't hold Aunt Edna or your sister or your mother accountable. It's just really hard to do it. It's really hard for me to call my mom at the end of the month and basically say, hey, Mom, you've got 2.5 hours left and you're missing 700 PV. What are you going to do about that? Do you know what my mother would tell me? She'd be like, don't you talk to me like that. It's so hard for me to hold my mother or my sisters or my daughters or anybody accountable the way that we need to hold people accountable in our business. And, when we're on the airplane and they're going through instructions before we fly, they always say, put your mask on first before you put somebody else's mask on. So for me, it was make yourself financially free first before you try and take on other people that you're going to have to build their organizations for. Because usually what ends up happening is you spread yourself so thin that nobody wins, that no one becomes financially free. The second reason is because I have seen so many times, and if this isn't the case with you, it's probably because you haven't done the business long enough with family members on your front line, where it really hurts your relationship. Instead of a mother-daughter relationship, you now have a business relationship. Instead of brother-sister relationship, you now have a business relationship. And every time you're at family events, you're not talking about the kids, you're not talking about the family, you're talking about business and about doTERRA. This is a really hard thing. I remember we had one of our leaders, not my frontline, but a ways down in our organization, we had a mother, and she wanted to go diamond, and she had this great idea. I'm going to sign up all 7 of my daughters on my front line. Well, it wasn't a great idea. It was actually a disaster. She did end up going diamond. But just a few years later, every single one of them and her stopped building doTERRA. It had hurt all their relationships so badly. I also remember this presentation that I did for a bunch of different builders, and there happened to be 2 sisters in the room. And we went over placements, and I talked about how putting your family on your front line was a really hard thing. Well, the upline sister came up to me and said, well, it hasn't been a hard thing for us at all. And then the downline sister, the one that was underneath, right, came up and said, yes, it has. It has ruined our relationship. So obviously one of them was definitely feeling the tension. So let me tell you what I did for my family. There are 2 specific people in my family that I really wanted to make sure that I helped out. The first was my mother. My mother was in her 60s at the time when we started doTERRA, and she was tired, and she was cleaning houses for a living, and she had to make that money. And I felt bad for her, and I knew that she was tired, and I wanted her to have a break. And so once I had already gone diamond and my legs were pretty secure, I actually signed her up, not frontline, but a couple levels down, and placed underneath her a really committed and really capable leader. And that committed and capable leader, me and my frontline, put a lot of time and energy and helped build them out, really focused on her. We kept in rollership, right? But she became a presidential diamond. So my mother, who was above this leader, she never had any other legs, but now has a check of $5,000 a month because she's an elite with a huge organization underneath her. And so she was able to retire, and it's been a wonderful thing for her. And yes, she helped me in different ways. She would watch my kids when I would do doTERRA. She would come and she would cook for our events. And she's never built. Every once in a while, she's like, I'd really like to build. And I'd simply say to her, well, when you're ready to bring somebody to the table, I'm ready to help you. And she never has, and she probably never will. But it was a blessing in her life. The second was my brother. My brother has always struggled with dyslexia and was having a hard time going through college and was taking a really long time to graduate. And he was living at my house at the time in our basement when we started doTERRA. And so a committed and capable leader was placed under him, but my front line was given enrollership, so my brother wasn't on my front line. And that person really built a huge organization. And incredibly enough, after my brother graduated, he decided that, wow, I already have the start of a big organization underneath me. I'm just going to build out my doTERRA organization. So they moved up to Canada and became founders, and they're doing doTERRA right now full time. So I have been able to help my family, but I first made sure that I was financially free so I could support that and that it didn't suck my time freedom. And that is what I recommend for you. So let's go on to, oh, that's just a picture of family. If you put family on the front line, right? There's Aunt Edna, a bunch of other people. Sometimes it gets a little hairy. Okay, Mistake number three is not placing by location. Let me tell you the problem with this. Let's say you have different legs. Let's say you have a leg in Utah, you have a leg in California, and you have a leg out in Texas, okay? And let's say your California leg is doing great, your Utah leg is doing great, but Texas is really struggling, and you're trying to push your Texas leg to silver so you can go platinum. Or let's say you have, two legs in California, one leg in Utah, and one in Texas because you want to go diamond. And your Texas leg is really struggling, and someone from California signs up. Well, a tendency for a lot of people is to take that enrollment from California and put them under your Texas leg because you need volume in your Texas leg. Short term, this helps with volume, but long term, how is your Texas group going to support that California sign up? They won't. And so who has to support them? Well, you do, of course. And this completely takes away your time freedom. And sometimes in some organizations, people have done this dozens and dozens of times. They've just randomly placed people all over in different locations. And two things usually happen. Number one, people fall apart because they can't get supported and you can't support them enough. Or number two, well, you do all the supporting and you have no more time. So you don't have time freedom and you don't have time to build new legs or come up with, go blue diamond and presidential or whatever you want to do. So this is a real problem. So what you want to do is put your California people with your California group. Put your Colorado people with your Colorado group. Now let me be really clear. If you obviously have a new committed and capable leader and you want to put them frontline, it doesn't matter if you have multiple people in the same state. I'm talking about people who are product users and sharers, or just committed or just capable, people that you don't want to work with individually, not your frontline qualifying people. You want to make sure they're somewhere in proximity to the leaders that are going to help them. So what does that mean if you're low at the end of the month in your Texas leg? Well, it means that you should have been studying and looking all month long where your numbers are low. And if you knew that your numbers are going to be low in Texas, you do most of your recruiting and most of your classes in Texas so you can get most of your enrollments and volume in Texas where they can be supported. So that's the third mistake. The fourth mistake is not placing, here it says placating, sorry, not placing people by relationships. And let me tell you what that means, okay? Let's say you have a running group. You go running every single morning and with the same 5 or 6 friends, right? And let's also say you have a group that you started at work. So you have all these coworkers and they're kind of doing doTERRA with you, and you have this running group that is doing doTERRA with you, and they're 2 separate legs in your organization. Well, let's say one month you have your group at work is struggling with volume. And in your running group, there's a girl that's been running with you that hasn't signed up yet. And she comes up to you and says, hey, I'm really interested in, building this doTERRA business, or I'm really interested in doing a class, or I'm really interested in buying product. Well, you might be tempted to put that sign up over with your friends, your coworkers, because you're low in volume. Well, what usually ends up happening is, even though they're placed with your coworkers, because you run every morning, your running friends are the ones that are going to have to answer all their questions, and she'll go to their classes to be supported. And after a while, it causes a problem because your running friends come back to you and say, why didn't you put Sarah, who runs with us every morning, in our group? We have to support her anyway. Why is she with your friends over here? And it really causes issue and drama. I've seen it all the time. So a good rule of thumb is trying to keep people together by not only location, but also by relationship. Okay. So now if we're trying not to make these 4 mistakes, right? not to put product use and shares on our front line, not to place family members on our front line, to place in the right location and to place with the right relationships. Well, many of us haven't done this. And we kind of look at our organization and it looks like maybe just a big mess of spaghetti. And so how do we solve these placement issues? Well, one thing I want to tell you is that doTERRA has been so kind to us, and they have given us tools to actually go back and figure out placements. You know, many companies, it's like once they're there, once they're signed up, there's nothing you can do. They're stuck forever. That's not the case with doTERRA, and I'm super grateful for this. So let's go through and let's figure out what are the different things that we can actually do to help solve all of these mistakes. Okay, now the first thing and the most important thing, in fact, people don't look at this a lot because they feel like, oh my gosh, it's so hard. It's like the thing that they do last. But the easiest thing to do, and we're gonna go through these easiest to hardest, is to build a new leg. I usually tell people it's way easier to give birth than to resurrect people from the dead. And that's a lot of times true when it comes to doTERRA. It's way easier to start with someone who's fresh and excited and hasn't been trained wrong and maybe doesn't have, is not disappointed or discouraged. I'm not saying that we shouldn't go back through and help everybody else or give them opportunities. We should. But it's so much easier to build a new leg. I know that a lot of times we are so hesitant to build a new leg, and I'll tell you why. Because we think, well, gosh, it's taken us years to build this existing leg. And if I start another new leg, I don't have years to wait. Well, let me tell you something interesting. It's taken you years to build that new leg because most of the time you didn't know how to build properly. You didn't know who you were looking for, what to look for. You didn't know how to build effectively and quick. And those are all the things that you'll be taught. So if I were to tell you, all right, you have an option. You can either work with the struggling leg and drag them along for the next 5 or 10 years, or if I showed you a way that within 6 months, like minimum, I've done this a lot in 6 weeks, right? But within 6 months, you could have a brand new silver leg from someone that was committed and capable and that was self-reliant. What would you choose? Well, of course you would choose building a new leg. So that is always the easiest solution. It's always the best way to go. And it's really interesting. A lot of people hesitate on building a new leg because they feel scared that they're just going to be, they feel scared that they're going to get stuck. And they feel scared that they're going to put somebody up on the front line and they're not going to work out, and then they're not going to use that volume, right? Well, if you know what you're looking for and you've tested them, most of the time you're not going to have a problem. Let me tell you a quick little story. This is my second presidential diamond leg. So I'd already built 6 diamonds and above. And once they were all diamonds and above, I started my second presidential leg. And one of these legs, she went diamond, but she wasn't a strong diamond. She was in Taiwan, and she was older, and she actually got cancer and she passed away. Well, when she passed away, she gave her business to her son. Her son was neither committed nor capable and didn't really want to build the business. So I had a big question to ask myself, and that question was, should I just prep this leg, or I should say prop it up and keep doing all the work for this leg? There's about 90,000 in volume there. So it's a substantial leg, right? Or if he didn't want to do anything and he didn't want to give away enrollership, he didn't want to transfer, nothing. Or should I build a new leg, and I can still support this leg through programs and if they need help, but I'm not going to count on this leg. Well, I decided to build a new leg and just 6 to 9 months later, I had a new diamond and a new leg, and I still am not counting on that leg. And I have yet another leader that's committed and capable and self-reliant. So it was the best move for me. So if I'm able to look over 90,000 in volume, you absolutely should be able to look over 2,000, 3,000, right? 1,500. And what we're going to show you is a system of how to make people elite in 6 weeks. So if they're anything less than elite, you need to really look at that and think, okay, in 6 weeks, I could have another leg, or I could be dragging this one along. So it's really an important thing to look at. Building a new leg is always the easiest thing. Now, there's 2 ways that we can build a new leg. You can actually build a new leg on your front line, and their front line, they're qualified to you, and you just build them out, right? So imagine right here, you have 3 committed and capable leaders on the front line, and you have 1 sharer. And under that sharer are just 3 product users. And you know that that sharer is probably never going to go anywhere. This is the leg that you've been propping people up, or putting, product users under there, or even buying in every month to go diamond. And so you decide, okay, well, I'm just going to start a new leg because I don't really have a ton of volume there. And there's nothing I can really do for that share with product users. Nowhere in there can you find a committed and capable person. So you start a new leg. The second way that we can start a new leg is placing a new committed and capable leader under an existing leg. So for example, you have your same organization, 3 committed and capable leaders, and then a sharer. Under that sharer, you have a product user that has 1,800 in volume, a sharer that has 4,700, and another sharer that has 3,500. Now, to go diamond, obviously that third leg needs to be elite. So one of the things that you can do, and you have to make this decision based on if you're not willing to lose your rank or lose your diamond check for 1 or 2 months, or you even just can't. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you went diamond a year ago and you quit your job, and your diamond check is what supports everything. So if you were to build another leg and let this leg just kind of disappear, then you would lose your diamond check for a little bit, and you'd have to go back to work, which would probably be not a good idea, because if you went back to work, it would give you less time to build your business. So under this condition, you would probably want to sign a committed and capable leader up underneath the product user, keep enrollership for yourself, and as you're building that committed and capable leader to become your new frontline, it's helping with volume there. So it holds you at diamond. Now, I do have to say that this isn't always the best idea, and let me tell you why. Every time that you place a qualifying leader down a level, like if you place them down just 1 level from your front line, so if they were on your 2nd level and they were your qualifying leader on your 2nd level, you cut the unilevel that you receive from them in half almost. So no matter how much time or energy or money you put into this person, you cut it in half. If you place them even down on your 3rd level, you cut it in half again. So long term, you're taking a hit on unilevel. But sometimes, depending on the circumstances, that might be the best move. All right, so that's the first and easiest way that we can solve our problems, is building another leg. The second is what's called an account transfer. So an account transfer basically looks like, here you are, you have a committed and capable leader, 3 committed and capable leaders on your front line, and then you have that sharer. If you can find a new person, how do you like my hand-drawn arrow? If you can find a new person that has never been signed up with doTERRA before, okay? So they've never been signed up before, they don't have a Wellness Advocate account, you can actually transfer that person into the sharer's position. Now, it's a little bit hard to transfer somebody into a sharer, because sharers feel like, hey, I'm building, even though maybe they're not building at the same pace as you. It's a little bit easier if you're transferring them into a product person's position. But if you're ever transferring somebody in, you have to make it a win-win, meaning you have to make it win for not just you, because now you're going to have a committed and capable person on your front line. And remember, our goal is to have all of your qualifying legs committed and capable, so you have time freedom and all of your legs are self-reliant. But so our goal is to have them all committed and capable. But sometimes people actually make the mistake of, oh, I was talking about it has to be a win-win. So sometimes you have to give them product and say, hey, if you'll transfer out, I can give you product. Or sometimes if their leg is big enough, you actually have to buy out that person to transfer somebody in. Now that's a rare exception, but I have seen it happen. And you have to be skilled when you have this conversation with somebody and have to approach it with, okay, how can I make this a win-win for you and not just for me? Now, another thing I want to make sure that you understand, and I've seen this happen quite a lot, is when you transfer a new person into that position, if you don't test them to see if they're committed, and if you don't test them to see if they're capable of bringing people to the table before they sign up. So basically you would ask, hey, try and get 3 people on the phone with me, or let's see this first week how many people would be interested before you even tell them that you want to move them into a pre-existing position. You want to see what kind of people they bring to the table. Number one, if they bring nobody, if they can't find anybody that first week, those are red flags, and you shouldn't move that new person in to this position, because you're going to have the exact same problem in 6 months. If they're bringing people that are only product users to the table, that should be red flags for you too, because it means that you yourself are going to be in the same position in time, and you're going to have to be finding them business builders. So please test them and make sure they're both committed and capable, because I have seen some people move new people into the same position 4 and 5 times. And almost always it's the same problem. They didn't test them. And it just pushes them back 6 months and another 6 months and sometimes a year. And you're looking 3 or 4 years later and you still have the same issue, that you don't have a committed and capable person there. But this is a very viable option. You can do an account transfer. It's quite simple to do. If you don't know exactly how to do it, call your account manager. Okay, so the next way that we can help solve these problems is by an enrollership change. Now, I hope you all know that no matter where someone is in your organization, if you have enrollership of that person, you can basically treat them as if they're frontline. Meaning, let's say you have 3 committed and capable people, but down the row, down here, you have actually this slide is incorrect. I'm sorry. That share at the very bottom, that actually should be a CC, someone that's committed and capable. So let's say you have someone committed and capable at the very bottom, levels down. If you have their enrollership, you can treat them just like a frontline, and they can be a qualifying leg for you, and you have a committed and capable leader. Although, obviously, it hurts you with unilevel. But if you have someone down here, I'm going to move this little, imagine this S right here says CC. I apologize for that slide. So they're committed and capable. You can actually ask for the enrollership and of this person. Let's say the CC here, that this share has enrollership of the CC. You can ask for that enrollership to be transferred to you. Now, if it's a product user, it's very easy usually to get an enrollership change. If it's a sharer and they feel like they're kind of building the business, it's a little bit harder. And once again, you need to make sure that whenever you have these conversations, it's a win-win situation, that it's not just, hey, this is what I want and this works for me, but it has to work for them also. And sometimes the reason why this enrollership change is not number 1 on the way that we solve problems, it's actually, a couple of steps down, is because it's not as easy. It's not as easy as starting a new leg. In fact, sometimes you can hurt friendships, you can hurt relationships. A lot of people will say no to enrollership change. You have to have a very skillful person to make this call. So if you want to know more details about enrollership change and how to do that, you can call your account manager. Next, you actually can do what's called a placement swap. Now, This is a little bit harder to do, and it does not always get approved. It really doesn't. And so I wouldn't count on this, and this is why it's lower on the list of easy to hard. And a placement swap basically looks like this. Here you are with 3 committed and capable leaders on your front line, okay? You have a sharer on your front line, but right underneath that sharer is a committed and capable person. Let's say those people are willing to actually trade names on the accounts. You actually never ever trade positions. So that committed and capable, let's say the sharer's account was named Anne and the CC's account was named Tom. And all you would do is everything would stay the same in your whole organization. Like the sharer's organization would look exactly the same, but basically they would just put Tom's name on top and they would put the sharer's name Anne on the bottom. And everything stays the same. Enrollerships stay the same. All the different legs stay the same. Nothing changes, just the name on your account. And even the account numbers stay the same unless you request differently. So you might be asking yourself, why would somebody want to do that? Why would a committed and capable person want to swap if their organization is better than the sharer's organization? And the reason why most of the time is they are closer to you. And you now have enrollership of them, and you can put more of your time, your energy, and your talents and your resources into them. And they're wanting more help. They're wanting more resources. They're wanting more investment. And this can be a real win-win. Now, why would the sharer trade places with the person that's a CC? Well, maybe the CC's organization is more set up. They have more legs. They have more leaders. And so the sharer actually moves into a better set up organization. I've seen this placement swap work mostly for, like, let's say if it's mother-daughter and the mother happened to sign up first, the daughter signs up underneath her, but the mother isn't super interested in building and the mother just kind of wants to help her daughter. And so they swap positions. I've seen that quite a lot. So a placement swap is harder to do. A lot of times they get turned down because they want to make sure that the swap will help the entire organization and that the whole organization will be supported. And sometimes that doesn't happen. So you can't bank on this at all. But you can do a placement swap. And if you did that, you would have 4 CCs on your front line that are committed and capable so that in time they become self-reliant, right? Okay, the next thing that you could do is you could actually terminate an account. Let me show you what that would look like. So here's you have 3 CCs on your front line. Let's say you have a sharer on your front line and they're not super interested in doing doTERRA anymore. In fact, they've kind of felt stressed and they've kind of felt like they're holding you back. And you actually can go to them and ask them to call into doTERRA and to terminate their account. Now, if that sharer has ever been more than silver or above, you've got to wait 12 months for the CC to move up. And so either you wait 6 months or you wait 12 months. They don't move up immediately. So you have to take this into consideration, right? So usually when you terminate an account, that leg can't be a qualifying leg for you for a little while. And sometimes that's that can work out, and sometimes it just can't work out. But in this condition, you just terminate that account and that committed and capable leader will roll up to your front line. So that's another thing that you can do is terminate an account. Next, we do have an exceptions committee. Now, what I want to tell you about this exceptions committee, and I want this to be very, very, very clear, is the exceptions committee deal with exceptions, meaning that you can't bank on that all of your exceptions that you put in are going to get approved. In fact, 75% of the time, the answer is no. Most companies don't even have an exceptions committee. The answer is always no. So we're lucky to even have an exceptions committee. So I have met some leaders that will be like, yeah, well, I'm going to be diamond in January. I'm like, oh, right, really? Show me your plan. And they go, well, once this swap is done, once I transfer this person in, and I have all these exceptions when they're moving these people, I'll be set up. And I'm like, okay, that's not a plan. That's a pipe dream. And almost none of those they're going to say yes to. So let me actually go through and show you always what they say no to. Like, don't even waste your time or your upline's time filling out paperwork or your account manager's time if any of these three things are going to happen, if with the exception. Number one, they will always say no when the move that you're wanting to make or the exception that you're asking for makes you a new rank. So if it immediately makes you a diamond or a blue diamond, they will always say no. Always, always, always. And actually, when you look at the big picture, we want this to happen. So many times we come to the table and to the exceptions committee and we only think about our circumstance. And we only think, well, this has to happen. They have to want to help me. But let's look at the big picture. The reason why our pools, our leadership pools are as strong as they are, and they've been stable for years, is because they don't let just anybody into the pools. They make people build, and they make people build new legs, and they make people have new volume, right? Which helps you with unilevel, which helps the pools. If they let everyone just restructure, and all of a sudden there were like 50 new diamonds in the pool that really didn't deserve to be there and didn't build the way that the original diamonds built, then the pool would be totally, it would be worth a lot less. And you don't want that. It's easy for us to look outside and say, yeah, I don't want any of that to happen with other people. But for me, it's a different story. And that's not the case. It's just not the case. And we actually want the exceptions committee to hold firm to this rule. The second rule is, if that move fills in your power of three, if it fills in your power of three, they will say no every single time. Don't even ask for it. They will say no. So, and we want that to happen too, because we can't just let people just restructure and everybody gets power of three. That also hurts the company, right? We have to make sure that they build in a way where they're bringing more volume with them as power of three gets paid out. And the last is, if you're trying to move a leg or a builder and they have OV over 1,000 points, they will always say no every single time. If it's 1,008 points, it's a no. And let me tell you the reason why. They're trying to protect the upline. Let's say I have somebody on my front line who has 5,000 points. And I want to move that person off my front line, and I want to move them down one level because it helps me qualify for rank. Well, guess what? The person right above me, what I have just done to them is all of the money that they would have made off of that leg, it now gets cut in half in their unilevel. And this isn't fair, because they could have invested in this person. They could have paid for Diamond Club. They could have spent time and energy. And the company wants to make sure that we keep all of the unilevel fair. And I'm grateful that the company does this. Now, some people will look at this and say, well, then they don't want to help us at all. If they won't do any of these things, they don't want to help us at all. That's not true. If it makes sense, and if the move supports the entire downline, and if it doesn't make you a new rank or fill in power of three, or if it's not over 1,000 points, they'll always look at what's best for the person, what's best for your group to be supported, and for you long term. Now, their decision isn't what's easiest for you or how do you work the least. That's never their decision. Their decision is what is best. And once again, like I said before, 75% of the time, it's a no. So going back to the original thing, it's always easier to start a new leg. It's always easier to go out and contact and recruit and have new, fresh blood into your, in your organization, people that are excited. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of different scenarios. So if this was your organization, let's go through this really quickly. Here's you, okay? You have one committed and qualified leader right here. They have two committed and qualified leaders, so they're doing good. And one of them is just capable, but not committed. So it's not ideal, but a lot of times our organizations don't look ideal, right? So there's your first leg. Your second leg, you have a sharer, a product user right underneath that, and then underneath that, a committed and capable leader. Over here on your third leg, you have another committed and capable leader, and they have the same thing, 2 committed and capable leaders and 1 leader that's committed but not capable. Your third leg, you have a committed and capable leader, but you have a product person, okay? Actually, once again, I'm so sorry. I was doing these slides way too fast. And so this shouldn't be committed and capable. This should actually be a product user. So if this were a product user, and these were all 3 product users underneath, let's look at how we would actually structure this, okay? Let's go. Now, once again, this is not correct. This should be a product user. So we wouldn't do anything for this leg. They're doing great, right? Leave it alone. We wouldn't do anything for this leg. They're doing great. What we'd want to do probably for this leg is take the enrollership of this committed and capable leader from the product user right above. And over here, because once again, this is incorrect, this would be a product user with 3 product users. There's really nothing going on there at all. So we would start a brand new leg. So what would it look like? What would our plan look like? Well, it would look like step number 1, find a new builder committed and capable. Step number 2, place that person on our front line. And step number 3, get that enrollership change. This would be our placement strategy. Let's go to our next organization, okay? And I'm gonna make sure, just because we were doing this so quickly, I'm gonna make sure that, that we put this up right. Okay, here you are right here. You have a sharer on your front line, so not ideal, with a committed and capable person, second level. You have a product user with product. And then you have just someone who's committed but not capable underneath a product user, and 1 level down, a committed and capable builder. And then over here, we have another product user underneath is committed and capable and just capable. Now, this isn't great, right? There's no one on our front line that's committed and capable. And at first glance, you might say to yourself, I have to start all the way over. I just have to scratch my whole organization and start all the way over. But let me tell you, with a proper placement strategy, what you could do. Let's look at it. All right. So here, with a sharer and a committed and capable leader, you could possibly try a swap, right? A swap, or even just moving somebody in to that position, a transfer. But here we put swap, okay? So that's what we're going to try here, a swap. Right here, this product user that has 3 product users underneath, there's really nothing much we can do there, because guess what? There's nobody there that's really going and building. So we're gonna do a new committed and capable leader. We're gonna put up a new leg on our front line. Over here, we have a product user, and right underneath is a committed and capable leader, and then just someone who's 1C. Well, we can terminate this account really quick right here, right? We can terminate that account, and in time, that committed and capable leader moves to the front line. So we start working with them after we get that termination done, because we know they're going to be on our front line, committed and capable. Right here, you can actually take an enrollership change of this committed and capable person, and instead of giving it to them, we give it to us. Boy, I'm doing a lot of these arrows incorrectly. Sorry. I need to go through and clean this up. So that committed and capable enrollership actually goes all the way up to us, okay? So let's go through and look at this. So we'd have 1 committed and capable leader that gets swapped to our front line. We have 2 committed and capable leaders that's on our front line. This, we're taking enrollership change of that committed and capable person. And then we have a 4th committed and capable person that moves up to our front line, and voila, our organization is fixed and we can move forward, and it's awesome, and we're not stuck. The cool thing about doTERRA is we're never stuck if we're still willing to work and we're still willing to recruit and put up new legs, right? We never are stuck. So the placement strategy here would be step number 1, find a new builder that's committed and capable. Step number 2, place on the front line. Step number 3, we terminate the account and we let that committed and capable roll up to the front line. Step number 4, we get the enrollership change of that committed and capable person down below. And step number 5, we ask for an exception to swap the committed and capable with the sharer. So That would be the placement strategy here. Now, what is your assignment for this week? Well, I want you to study each of your qualifying legs and come up with a placement strategy to have in the future. So you only have committed and capable builders as your qualifying legs. Now, I don't want you to get frustrated, because guess what? This doesn't have to happen overnight. Sometimes it takes quite a long time. In fact, sometimes as you're building and you're still using one leg, but it's not ideal, it can take years. As we put up another leg and get in a change and people move up to the front line, don't get frustrated. Just take one step at a time. But if you have your placement strategy, we know what we're moving towards. So it's super important that in Diamond Dash, you have this placement strategy so we know where we're building, how many leaders we're looking for, right? And what we're going to concentrate on. So we're concentrating on the people that long-term are going to help us have time freedom and that they will become self-reliant. Thanks so much for watching and have a great week. Bye-bye, everyone.